The ancient light danced across the viewport, its soft blue glow illuminating Lyra Vance's weathered face. She traced her finger along the holographic map hovering above her palm, the coordinates to the legendary Starlight pulsing with promise. They said it was just a myth, she whispered to herself, a smile playing at the corner of her lips. The greatest power in the galaxy, hidden away for millennia. The Lyran star system sprawled before her ship, its 7 planets orbiting the dying white dwarf at its center. According to legend, this system was home to the ancient civilization that had first harnessed Starlight, the primordial energy said to have the power to either save or destroy all of existence. And now, after years of searching, she had a map leading straight to it. The bridge of her ship, the Nomad's fortune, hummed with familiar energy. Lyra slipped the data crystal containing the map into her jacket pocket and turned to face her small but loyal crew. "Well?" Rook Tanner asked. His arms crossed over his broad chest. The ship's engineer was a man of few words, but his eyes revealed his curiosity. "Was your contact telling the truth?" Lyra's grin widened. "See for yourself." She projected the map onto the main console, and the holographic display expanded to show the detailed route through the treacherous Lyran system, past the White Dwarf's plasma storms, and toward a hidden temple on the system's outermost moon. Rook whistled low. "That's incredibly specific for a legend." "Because it's not just a legend," Lyra replied, zooming in on the temple's location. "The Starlight is real, and according to this map, it's been hidden in that temple for the past 1,000 years. The ship's AI, Hawk, materialized as a shimmering blue hologram beside them. "Captain, I've analyzed the map's authenticity. While I cannot confirm the existence of Starlight itself, the astronomical data and navigational markers are accurate to within 98.7% of current star charts." Lyra nodded. She had expected as much. "And what about galactic preservation forces in the area?" Hawk's expression remained neutral. "2 patrol vessels within scanning range. They appear to be conducting routine surveillance." "Perfect," Lyra said, sliding into the captain's chair. "We'll make our move tonight." "Tonight?" Rook's eyebrows shot up. "Lyra, we should at least run some preliminary scans. Maybe send a probe." "No time," she cut him off. "I wasn't the only one meeting with that contact today. Word will spread fast, and I'd rather not compete with every other space pirate and treasure hunter in the sector." She turned to Hawk. "Plot a course that keeps us hidden behind the 4th planet's rings. We'll approach from the blind side." As Hawk nodded and disappeared to carry out her orders, Rook moved closer, lowering his voice. "This feels rushed, even for you. What aren't you telling me?" Lyra hesitated. Rook had been her friend and crew member for over a decade. If anyone deserved the truth, it was him. "The contact wasn't selling this map. He gave it to me." Rook's eyes narrowed. "Why would he do that?" "Because he was dying." Lyra's voice softened. "Radiation poisoning from an old reactor leak. Said he'd stolen the map decades ago, but never had the courage to follow it. Wanted someone to find the Starlight before he died." "And you believe him?" Lyra shrugged. "Dying men rarely lie about their last wishes." She turned back to the console. "Besides, what do we have to lose?" Rook sighed. "Only our lives, potentially." "We risk those every day," Lyra replied with a wink. "At least this time, the payoff might be worth it." The Nomad's fortune slipped silently through space, its stealth systems engaged as it approached the ancient temple's coordinates. The heist was simple: get in, secure the Starlight, and disappear before anyone knew they were there. What Lyra didn't tell Rook was that her dying contact had whispered one more thing before he passed the map to her. "The Starlight chooses its bearer. Be careful what you wish for when you find it." She dismissed the warning as the ramblings of a dying man. After all, Lyra Vance had built her reputation as one of the most notorious space pirates in the galaxy by taking exactly these kinds of risks. The greater the danger, the greater the reward. And if the legends were true, Starlight would be the greatest reward of all. The ship's alert system suddenly blared to life, bathing the bridge in pulsing red light. "Captain," Hawk's voice was urgent. "Galactic Preservation Forces have changed course. They're headed directly for us." Lyra's hand instinctively moved to the ship's controls. "How? We're running silent." "Unknown," Hawk replied. "But their trajectory suggests they know exactly where we are." Rook's expression darkened. "Someone tipped them off." "Or they were tracking the map all along," Lyra muttered. She made a split-second decision. "Hawk, disengage stealth systems and transfer all power to engines. If they know we're here, there's no point hiding." "Engaging engines at maximum thrust," Hawk confirmed. The Nomad's Fortune lurched forward, its powerful engines igniting with blinding force. Lyra gripped the controls, a familiar rush of adrenaline flooding her system. "They're pursuing," Hawk reported. "2 vessels, heavy cruiser class, weapon systems online." "Of course they are," Lyra growled. She turned to Rook. "Get to engineering. I need everything you can give me." As Rook sprinted from the bridge, Lyra focused on the swirling plasma storms surrounding the white dwarf ahead. No sane pilot would fly directly into such a hazard, which made it the perfect escape route. "Hawk, plot a course through the plasma field. Find us a path with minimal turbulence." The AI hesitated. "Captain, the probability of successfully navigating the plasma storms is approximately—" "I don't want to know the odds," Lyra cut him off. "Just find me a path." As the Nomad's Fortune raced toward the churning maelstrom of superheated plasma, the Galactic Preservation Cruisers opened fire. Energy beams lanced through space, narrowly missing the smaller ship's engines. "Return fire," Lyra ordered. "Target their sensor arrays. I want them flying blind." The ship shuddered as its weapon systems engaged, sending a barrage of energy pulses toward their pursuers. One struck home, causing a small explosion on the lead cruiser's upper hull. "Direct hit on primary sensor array," Hawk reported. "Their targeting efficiency has dropped by 43%. "Not enough," Lyra muttered. The edge of the plasma storm loomed ahead, a writhing wall of blue-white energy. "Hold on to something!" The Nomad's Fortune plunged into the storm, and chaos engulfed them. The ship bucked and rolled as waves of plasma battered against its shields. Warning alarms shrieked from every console. "Shield integrity at 78% and falling," Hawk announced, his holographic form flickering with interference. Lyra fought with the controls, using every trick she'd learned in her years as a pilot to keep the ship stable. "Rook, I need more power to the shields." "Working on it," his voice crackled over the comms. "But we've got problems down here. The plasma's playing havoc with the power regulators. If we don't get out of this storm soon, we'll lose main power." Through the viewport, Lyra could see the Galactic Preservation Cruisers had halted at the edge of the storm. They wouldn't risk their larger vessels in such dangerous conditions. It gave her a momentary advantage, but at a cost. "Hawk, how much farther until we clear the storm?" "Approximately 3 minutes at current velocity," the AI replied. "However, I'm detecting a particularly dense plasma pocket ahead. Recommend altering course by 15 degrees to avoid—" A massive surge of energy slammed into the ship before Hawk could finish, sending it spinning wildly. Lyra was thrown from her chair, her head striking the edge of the console. Pain exploded behind her eyes as she fought to stay conscious. "Hull breach in Cargo Bay 3!" Rook's panicked voice cut through the chaos. "Emergency bulkheads engaged!" Lyra dragged herself back to the controls, blood trickling from a gash on her forehead. "Hawk, reroute all non-essential power to shields and engines. We need to get through this now." The ship lurched forward again, driving deeper into the storm. For nearly 2 minutes, the Nomad's Fortune was tossed like a leaf in a hurricane, its systems failing one by one. Just when Lyra thought they wouldn't make it, the turbulence suddenly ceased. They had emerged on the other side of the plasma field, battered but intact. "Damage report," Lyra commanded, wiping blood from her eyes. "Multiple hull breaches, contained by emergency systems," Hawk replied. "Engine efficiency reduced to 62%. Shield generators operating at 41% capacity. Life support stable. And the preservation forces? No pursuit detected. They appear to have withdrawn to the edge of the system." Lyra allowed herself a small smile. "Good. That should buy us some time." She opened a channel to engineering. "Rook, how bad is it?" His reply was punctuated by the sound of hissing steam and sparking electronics. "We'll live. But this ship isn't going anywhere fast. The main power coupling is fried, and the quantum stabilizers are barely holding together. We need to land somewhere for repairs." Lyra checked the map. "The temple is on a moon orbiting the sixth planet. Can we make it there?" "Maybe." Rook's voice was heavy with doubt. "But we'd be cutting it close. One more surprise, and we might not have enough power to land safely." "Then we'd better avoid surprises," Lyra said firmly. "Hawk, set course for the temple coordinates, and keep scanning for any preservation activity. I don't want them sneaking up on us." As the ship limped toward its destination, Lyra studied the map more closely. The temple was ancient, predating most of the civilizations in the galaxy. According to legend, it had been built by the Lyrans, a species that had mastered energy manipulation on a scale that seemed almost magical to modern science. And somewhere within that temple lay the Starlight, a power source so pure and potent that it could, according to the stories, either heal worlds or destroy them. Most dismissed it as myth, but Lyra had always suspected there was truth behind the legends. Now, she was betting her life on it. The sixth planet of the Lyran system came into view, a gas giant with rings of ice and dust. Orbiting it was a cluster of small moons, most barren and lifeless. But one, the third moon, showed signs of artificial structures. "There!" Lyra pointed to a spot on the moon's surface. "That has to be it." Hawk magnified the image. Nestled within a deep crater was what appeared to be a massive stone structure, its architecture unlike anything built by modern civilizations. Angular spires reached toward the stars, and massive doorways gaped open like the mouths of sleeping giants. "The Temple of Light," Lyra breathed. As they approached, however, her celebration was cut short. "Captain," Hawk's voice held a note of concern. "I'm detecting an energy signature already present at the temple." "Preservation forces?" Lyra asked, tensing. "Negative. It appears to be a single small vessel. Configuration unknown." Lyra frowned. Someone had beaten them there, but who? "Any life signs?" "One humanoid, currently inside the temple structure. Another treasure hunter, perhaps, or an archaeologist. Either way, they were competition." "Take us in, Hawk. We'll deal with our unexpected company when we land." The Nomad's fortune descended toward the temple, its damaged engines straining against the moon's weak gravity. Rook managed to coax enough power for a rough but survivable landing on a flat area near the temple entrance. As the ship settled with a groan of protesting metal, Lyra grabbed her gear, a plasma pistol, climbing equipment, and most importantly, the map crystal. "Rook, stay with the ship. See what repairs you can make. Hawk and I will secure the Starlight." Rook looked up from the tangle of wires he was already working on. "Alone? Lyra, we have no idea what's in there, or who that other visitor is. Which is why I need you here, making sure we have a way off this rock," she countered. "Don't worry. Hawk will have my back." The AI's hologram nodded. "I've downloaded my consciousness into a portable projector. I'll accompany the captain and maintain communication with the ship." Rook didn't look convinced, but he knew better than to argue once Lyra had made up her mind. "Fine, but at the first sign of trouble." "I'll run screaming back to the ship," Lyra finished with a grin. "Promise." The moon's atmosphere was thin but breathable, and its gravity lighter than standard. Lyra bounded toward the temple entrance, the portable projector containing Hawk attached to her belt. The massive doorway loomed ahead, covered in intricate carvings that seemed to shimmer in the dim light. "Can you translate any of this?" Lyra asked, running her fingers over the strange symbols. Hawk's hologram appeared beside her, studying the markings. "Only partially. The language shares some roots with ancient Lyran dialects. From what I can decipher, this appears to be a warning." "Of course it is," Lyra muttered. "What does it say?" "Something about, 'The unworthy shall be consumed by the light.'" Hawk translated hesitantly. "The rest is too degraded to read." Lyra shrugged. "Standard Temple Guardian talk. Nothing we haven't dealt with before." She drew her plasma pistol and stepped through the doorway into darkness. The interior of the temple was vast, its ceiling lost in shadows high above. As Lyra entered, lines of soft blue light ignited along the floor, illuminating a path forward. The walls were adorned with more carvings, depicting figures manipulating what appeared to be streams of light between their hands. "The Lyrans," Lyra whispered. "They really did exist. And they appear to have possessed technology far beyond their contemporaries." Hawk observed. "These images suggest they could manipulate energy at a quantum level with minimal technological assistance." As they ventured deeper into the temple, the air grew noticeably warmer. The path led them through a series of chambers, each more elaborate than the last, until they reached a circular room with multiple doorways, branching off in different directions. "Which way?" Lyra asked, consulting the map. Before Hawk could answer, a voice echoed from one of the corridors. "The map won't help you here, pirate." Lyra spun, weapon raised, as a figure stepped into the light. It was a woman, tall and imposing in the sleek gray uniform of the Galactic Preservation Force. Her dark hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and her hand rested on the energy weapon at her hip. "Officer Mirasol," the woman introduced herself with a cold smile. "I've been tracking you since you acquired that map." Lyra kept her pistol aimed at Mira's chest. "Funny. I didn't think preservation officers operated alone." "Special circumstances," Mira replied. "The Starlight is classified as a Category 1 relic. Its recovery is my sole mission." "Recovery?" Lyra laughed. "You mean confiscation. So the Preservation Force can lock it away in some secret vault where no one can use it." Mira's expression hardened. "Better that than letting someone like you sell it to the highest bidder. Do you have any idea what power you're dealing with?" "Enlighten me," Lyra challenged, not lowering her weapon. "The Starlight isn't just an energy source," Mira explained. "According to our research, it's a direct conduit to the quantum fabric of reality itself. In the wrong hands, it could tear apart the very structure of space-time." Hawk's hologram flickered with interest. "That aligns with some of the legends. The Lyrans were said to have used Starlight to reshape entire star systems, and eventually destroyed themselves in the process," Mira added grimly, "which is why I can't let you take it." Lyra's finger tightened on the trigger. "You're outnumbered, officer." "Am I?" Mira's smile returned. "Your AI companion doesn't seem combat capable, and your engineer is busy with your damaged ship. I'd say we're evenly matched." A tense silence stretched between them. Lyra knew she could shoot first, but something in Mira's confident stance suggested the officer had an ace up her sleeve. Before she could decide on a course of action, the ground beneath them trembled. "What was that?" Lyra demanded. Hawk's expression became alarmed. "Energy buildup detected below us. The temple appears to be awakening." The blue lights along the floor pulsed brighter, and a low humming filled the air. From one of the doorways, a blinding flash erupted, forcing both women to shield their eyes. When the light faded, the doorway was glowing with a blue-white radiance that seemed almost alive, tendrils of energy reaching out like curious fingers. "The Starlight Chamber," Mira breathed. "It's opening." Lyra made a split-second decision. She fired her pistol, not at Mira, but at the ceiling above her. Ancient stone cracked and fell, forcing the officer to dive for cover. In the confusion, Lyra sprinted toward the glowing doorway. "Lyra, wait!" Hawk called after her. "The energy readings are off the charts!" But Lyra was already through the doorway, drawn by the pulsing light ahead. The corridor beyond sloped downward, leading to a massive, circular chamber. At its center floated what appeared to be a sphere of pure light, suspended in midair, its radiance casting everything in an ethereal blue glow. The Starlight. It was smaller than Lyra had imagined, perhaps the size of her fist, but its brilliance was almost blinding. As she approached, she could feel its energy washing over her skin, like standing too close to a sun. "Incredible," she whispered. "Captain," Hawk's voice was urgent as his hologram materialized beside her. "I'm detecting unusual quantum fluctuations. This energy source is unlike anything in my database." Lyra reached toward the floating sphere, her fingers tingling as they neared the light. "Think of what we could do with this power. Hawk, we could go anywhere, have anything. Step away from the Starlight. Vance." Mira's voice echoed through the chamber. She stood at the entrance, her weapon drawn. "You have no idea what you're doing." "I know exactly what I'm doing," Lyra countered. "I'm claiming the greatest treasure in the galaxy." "It's not a treasure," Mira insisted, taking a careful step forward. "It's a responsibility. The Lyrans understood that. They built this temple not to hide the Starlight, but to protect it, and to protect us from it." As if responding to their conflict, the Starlight pulsed brighter, its tendrils of energy reaching out more aggressively. The temple shuddered again, more violently this time. "The energy is becoming unstable," Hawk warned. "If it continues to escalate, it could trigger a quantum cascade reaction." "In basic terms," Lyra asked, not taking her eyes off Mira. "It could explode with enough force to destroy this moon and possibly the entire planet it orbits." Mira lowered her weapon slightly. "Listen to your AI, Vance. We need to stabilize the Starlight, not fight over it." For a moment, Lyra hesitated. The promise of unlimited wealth and power was within her grasp. But at what cost? Before she could decide, a new tremor rocked the chamber, and a section of the ceiling collapsed between her and Mira, cutting them off from each other. "Mira!" Lyra called out, surprising herself with her concern for the preservation officer. "I'm all right," came the muffled reply. "But the temple is becoming increasingly unstable. The Starlight is reacting to our presence." Lyra turned back to the floating sphere of light, which was now pulsing erratically, its brilliance fluctuating between blinding and dim. "Hawk, what's happening to it?" The AI's hologram flickered as he analyzed the phenomenon. "The Starlight appears to be scanning us, almost as if it's sentient and trying to determine our intentions. The legend said it chooses its bearer." Lyra remembered her dying contact's words. Another violent tremor shook the chamber, and cracks began to form in the ancient walls. Through one of these fissures, Lyra caught a glimpse of the sky outside, and her heart sank. A massive galactic preservation cruiser had arrived, hovering ominously above the temple. "Reinforcements," she muttered. Mira must have called them before entering the temple. Her comm unit crackled to life with Rook's panicked voice. "Lyra, we've got a major problem. A preservation battlecruiser just entered orbit, and they're deploying ground forces. We need to leave, now." "Not without the Starlight," Lyra replied, her determination returning. This might be her only chance. She approached the floating sphere again, reaching out despite Hawk's warnings. As her fingers neared the light, it pulsed once more, and then, to her shock, split into multiple smaller spheres, each about the size of a marble. "What the—" Lyra gasped as the tiny lights began to orbit around her. "The Starlight is fragmenting," Hawk observed, "perhaps as a defense mechanism." One of the fragments floated directly in front of Lyra's face, seeming to study her. Then, without warning, it shot toward the collapsed debris blocking the entrance and effortlessly disintegrated it, revealing Mira on the other side. The preservation officer stared in awe as the Starlight fragments danced through the air, some orbiting Lyra, others moving toward Mira. "It's choosing both of us," Mira whispered. Before Lyra could respond, her comm unit blared with an incoming transmission. The voice that spoke was deep and commanding, filled with cold authority. "This is General Kellen Arvo of the Galactic Preservation Force. We have your ship surrounded. Surrender the Starlight immediately, or we will take it by force." Mira's face paled at the name. "Father," she murmured, almost inaudibly. Lyra's eyes widened. "Your father is General Arvo? The same General Arvo who's been hunting me across 3 sectors?" "It's complicated," Mira admitted, avoiding Lyra's gaze. Another tremor shook the temple, more violent than before. Pieces of the ceiling began to fall around them. "The temple is collapsing," Hawk announced unnecessarily. "We have approximately 5 minutes before structural integrity fails completely." Lyra made a quick decision. "Rook, prepare for emergency takeoff. We'll be there in 3 minutes." "What about the preservation forces?" he asked. "Working on it," Lyra replied cryptically. She turned to Mira. "Your father would shoot my ship down the moment we tried to leave." Mira nodded grimly. "He would. The Starlight is his obsession. He believes it's the key to establishing absolute control over the galaxy. For its own good, of course." "Of course," Lyra echoed sarcastically. "Any chance you could call him off?" "He stopped listening to me years ago," Mira said bitterly. "That's why I came alone. I hoped to secure the Starlight before he arrived with the full force." The fragments of Starlight continued to dance around them, some combining back together, others breaking apart further. The temple shuddered again, and a large crack spread across the floor. "We're running out of time," Lyra said urgently. "We need to get out of here, and we need to keep the Starlight away from your father." Mira studied Lyra's face, as if searching for something. "Why the sudden concern? I thought you wanted the Starlight for yourself." "I did," Lyra admitted. "But if it's as powerful as you say, I'd rather see it destroyed than used to control the galaxy." She gestured to the fragments. "Besides, it seems to have ideas of its own." After a moment's hesitation, Mira nodded. "All right. I'll help you escape. On one condition. The Starlight comes with me. I know a place where it can be protected, studied safely." "No deal," Lyra countered. "We take it together. Your knowledge, my ship. Once we're safe, we figure out what to do with it." Another section of ceiling collapsed nearby, emphasizing the urgency of their situation. "Fine," Mira conceded. "But how do we get past my father's forces?" Lyra grinned, a plan forming in her mind. "How familiar are you with ancient temple defense systems?" Mira raised an eyebrow. "Fairly. Why?" "Because," Lyra pointed to a series of symbols etched into the chamber walls, similar to those at the entrance. "I think the Lyrans left us a way out." With Hawk's help translating, and Mira's knowledge of ancient security protocols, they quickly identified a sequence of symbols that appeared to control the temple's defenses. As they pressed the final glyph, the entire structure hummed with power. Outside, the ground around the temple erupted with pillars of blue light, forcing the approaching preservation troops to fall back. In the confusion, Lyra and Mira, accompanied by the orbiting Starlight fragments, raced through the collapsing corridors toward the exit. They emerged into chaos. The temple was now surrounded by a ring of energy, keeping the preservation forces at bay, but also preventing them from reaching the Nomad's fortune, which sat just beyond the barrier. "Rook!" Lyra shouted into her comm. "Can you get the ship any closer?" "Not without frying the engines completely," he replied. "Whatever that energy field is, it's playing havoc with our systems." Mira studied the barrier. Then, looked at the Starlight fragments, still orbiting them. I think they can help us through. What do you mean? Lyra asked. Instead of answering, Mira reached out toward one of the fragments. It hovered over her palm, pulsing gently. They're connected to the temple. They're part of its defenses. But they're also the key. Lyra watched in amazement as Mira closed her eyes, concentrating on the fragment above her hand. After a moment, it glowed brighter, and a small gap appeared in the energy barrier directly in front of them. How did you do that? Lyra demanded. I didn't, Mira said, opening her eyes. It did. The Starlight responds to intention. The Lyrans must have designed it that way. Lyra glanced at the gap, which was already beginning to close. Well, whatever you did, keep doing it. That's our way out. Together, they ran for the narrowing opening, the Starlight fragments trailing behind them like a constellation of tiny stars. They barely made it through before the gap sealed itself, the energy field crackling angrily behind them. The Nomad's fortune waited ahead, its engines glowing with readiness. But between them and the ship stood a single figure, General Selen Arvo himself, flanked by 2 preservation soldiers. The general was a tall, imposing man with silver-streaked dark hair and the same stern features as his daughter. His uniform bore the countless medals and insignia of a decorated career, and his cold eyes fixed on the Starlight fragments with naked hunger. Mira, he acknowledged his daughter with a curt nod. I should have known you'd try to claim it yourself. Father, Mira replied, her voice steady despite her tension. The Starlight isn't what you think it is. It's not a weapon to be controlled. Everything is a weapon in the right hands, Selen countered. He turned his attention to Lyra. And you must be the notorious Lyra Vance. I've been tracking your activities for some time. Lyra gave him a mock bow. Flattered to have earned such attention, General. Now, if you'll excuse us. I think not. Selen drew his sidearm, a more advanced version of the standard Preservation Force weapon. The Starlight belongs to the Preservation Force, for the security of the galaxy. You mean for your security? Mira challenged. I've seen the reports. Father, I know what you really plan to do with it. A flicker of annoyance crossed Selen's face. You always were too idealistic, Mira. Power must be wielded by those strong enough to use it properly. The Starlight will ensure peace across the galaxy, under proper guidance, of course. Your guidance, Lyra said flatly. Naturally. Selen's smile didn't reach his eyes. Now, hand over the fragments, and I might let you leave with your lives. The Starlight fragments, which had been orbiting calmly around Lyra and Mira, suddenly contracted, clustering together defensively. I don't think they like that idea, Lyra observed. Without warning, Selen fired his weapon, not at them, but at the ground near their feet. The energy blast scattered them, and in the confusion, he lunged forward, reaching for the nearest Starlight fragment. As his fingers closed around it, the fragment flared with blinding intensity. Selen cried out, more in surprise than pain, as the light engulfed his hand and arm, spreading rapidly across his body. Father! Mira shouted, rushing toward him. Lyra grabbed her arm, holding her back. Wait! The light continued to spread until Kellen was completely enveloped in a cocoon of radiance. The 2 soldiers with him backed away, their weapons raised uncertainly. For a moment, everything was still. Then the cocoon pulsed once, twice, and burst apart. Selen stood transformed. His uniform was gone, replaced by what appeared to be armor made of solid light. His eyes glowed with the same blue-white radiance as the Starlight, and power crackled around his fingertips. Yes, he breathed, examining his transformed state. This is what I've been searching for, true power. He raised a hand, and one of his soldiers was lifted off the ground, suspended helplessly in midair. With a casual flick of his wrist, Selen sent the man flying back toward the temple, where he crashed against the energy barrier and collapsed. "Father, stop!" Mira pleaded. "The Starlight is changing you." "It's perfecting me," Selen corrected, his voice resonating with unnatural harmonics. "And, with this power, I will perfect the galaxy." The remaining Starlight fragments, still clustered around Lyra and Mira, pulsed with agitation. Hawk's hologram appeared beside them, his expression grave. "The Starlight has bonded with him," the AI observed. "But it's unstable. The quantum readings are fluctuating wildly." "In normal language, please," Lyra muttered. "He can't control it," Hawk clarified. "And if he continues to try, the resulting energy release could be catastrophic." As if to emphasize Hawk's point, the ground beneath Kellen's feet began to crack, energy seeping up through the fissures. The temple behind them trembled more violently, pieces of its ancient structure breaking apart and floating upward, defying gravity. "We need to stop him," Mira said urgently, "before he tears this moon apart." Lyra looked at the fragments orbiting them. "How?" "He's got the main piece of the Starlight." Mira held out her hand, and several fragments gathered above her palm, just as before. "Maybe not. I think these fragments are still connected to the whole. If we can use them together." "Worth a shot," Lyra agreed. She mimicked Mira's gesture, and the remaining fragments gathered above her own hand. "Now what?" "Focus," Mira instructed. "The Starlight responds to intention, remember? We need to show it what we want." They both closed their eyes, concentrating on the fragments above their palms. Lyra tried to clear her mind of everything, except one thought. Stop Selen before he destroys everything. The fragments began to glow brighter, their light joining together until it was almost as blinding as the cocoon that had engulfed Selen. Lyra could feel the energy flowing through her, not painful, but overwhelming, like standing in the heart of a star. When she opened her eyes, she saw that she and Mira were now connected by a bridge of light, the fragments having formed a glowing chain between them. Selen had noticed too, and his transformed face contorted with anger. "No!" he roared, lunging toward them. "It's mine! The power is mine!" As he reached for the chain of light, Mira made a decisive gesture. The chain suddenly whipped forward, wrapping around Selen like a lasso. He struggled against it, his enhanced strength almost breaking free. But Lyra added her own will to Mira's, and the bonds of light tightened. "Father," Mira said firmly, "the Starlight doesn't belong to anyone. It chooses who can use it, and how." "And it's rejecting you," Lyra added, feeling the truth of her words as she spoke them. "You wanted to control it, to use it for power. That's not what it was made for." Selen's struggles grew more desperate as the light binding him began to spread, merging with the armor he had gained. "You don't understand," he gasped. "With this power, I could bring order to the chaos. I could make the galaxy safe." "Safe for who?" Mira challenged. "For those who obey you? That's not safety, Father. That's tyranny." The temple behind them had now almost completely collapsed, its ancient stones floating in a swirling vortex of energy. The Nomad's fortune rocked on its landing struts as the ground continued to fracture. In orbit above, the preservation cruiser was backing away, sensing the impending disaster. "Lyra!" Rook's voice came urgently over the comm. "Whatever you're doing, do it fast. This whole moon is coming apart." Lyra nodded to Mira. Together, they focused all their will on the Starlight binding Selen, pushing against his desperate attempts to control it. For a moment, it seemed like a stalemate. Then, Selen's expression suddenly shifted from anger to fear. It's too much," he gasped. "I can't." The armor of light around him began to crack, energy pouring out from the fissures. Selen fell to his knees, his face contorted in agony. "It's rejecting him completely," Hawk observed. "The incompatibility is causing a quantum reaction cascade." "He's going to explode," Mira translated, horror in her voice. "Father!" Without hesitation, she ran toward him, still connected to Lyra by the chain of light. Lyra had no choice but to follow, the starlight fragments pulling them both forward. As they reached Ceylon, Mira placed her hand on his chest, where the cracks in his light armor were spreading most rapidly. "Let it go, Father," she urged. "Stop trying to control it." "I can't," he groaned. "It's inside me now." Lyra, acting on instinct, placed her hand beside Mira's. "Then we'll help you." The moment they touched him, the chain of light connecting them expanded, enveloping all three in a sphere of radiance. Inside this cocoon, Lyra could feel everything: Mira's determination, Selen's fear, and the starlight itself, a consciousness far older and more complex than she had imagined. It wasn't angry with Selen, she realized. It was afraid. For millennia, it had waited for someone who would understand its true purpose, not as a weapon or a source of power, but as a bridge between worlds, a healer of cosmic wounds. "It wants to help," Lyra whispered. "That's what it was made for. Not destruction, creation." Mira nodded, understanding dawning in her eyes. "Father, you have to let go of your fear. The starlight isn't a weapon to be used against your enemies. It's a tool to heal what's broken." For a long moment, Selen resisted, his face a mask of conflicting emotions. Then, slowly, the tension in his body eased. I see it now," he murmured. "All this time, I thought I was so wrong." As his resistance faded, the cracks in his armor sealed themselves. The sphere of light around them pulsed once, twice, and then expanded outward in a wave of gentle radiance that spread across the moon's surface. Where it passed, the fractured ground mended itself. The floating debris from the temple settled back to earth, not in ruins, but reconfigured into a new structure, more organic and flowing than the angular edifice it had been. Even the nomad's fortune, damaged from its earlier flight through the plasma storm, was bathed in the healing light, its hull sealing and its systems rejuvenating. When the wave of light reached the edge of the moon, it didn't stop but continued outward into space, a ripple of creation spreading through the Lyran system. Lyra could somehow sense its effects. Dead planets coming alive with new growth. The plasma storms of the white dwarf calming into gentle currents. Even the fabric of space itself, strengthening where it had been worn thin. The sphere around them gradually faded, leaving Lyra, Mira, and Selen standing in a transformed landscape. The starlight fragments had vanished, but Lyra could still feel their energy, now diffused throughout the environment. Selen looked down at his hands, now ordinary again. His transformation reversed. "I spent my entire career seeking power to impose order," he said quietly. "I never considered that true order might come from healing rather than control." Mira embraced her father, tears in her eyes. "The starlight showed us all what we needed to see." Lyra stepped back, giving them a moment of privacy. Hawk's hologram appeared beside her, his expression thoughtful. The starlight wasn't just an energy source, the AI observed. It was a form of consciousness, perhaps the last remnant of the Lyran civilization. "And now it's gone," Lyra said, feeling an unexpected pang of loss. "Not gone," Hawk corrected. "Transformed. The energy readings suggest it has integrated itself into the fabric of this system. It's everywhere now, but in a diffused state." Rook's voice came over the comm, excited and confused. "Lyra, you're not going to believe this. The ship, it's better than new. All the systems are operating at 120% efficiency, and there's some kind of new energy signature in the quantum drive that I've never seen before." Lyra smiled. "A parting gift, I think." She turned back to Mira and Selen, who were walking toward her. The general's bearing was different now, less rigid, more at peace. "Captain Vance," he acknowledged her with a respectful nod. "It seems I owe you an apology. and my thanks. Just doing my job, Lyra replied, with a hint of her old roguish smile. Stealing ancient artifacts, unleashing cosmic powers. You know, the usual. Mira laughed, the sound bright and unexpected. So, what happens now? The Starlight is gone, or at least, not in a form anyone can possess. Now, Lyra looked up at the sky, where the ripple of starlight energy was still visible, spreading outward toward distant stars. Now, I think we explore. The starlight changed this system, but who knows how far its influence will reach. There could be other temples, other artifacts. Other treasures to steal? Selen asked, a hint of his old sternness returning. To find, Lyra corrected, and to understand. The universe just got a lot more interesting. Mira looked at her father, then back to Lyra. I know this is presumptuous, but would you have room for one more on your crew? At least temporarily. I think I'd like to see where this leads. Selen started to object, then stopped himself. You're an adult, Mira, and a fine officer. But perhaps the Preservation Force's approach has been too rigid. We could learn from what happened here. Lyra pretended to consider the request, though in truth, she had already made up her mind. Mira had proven herself both capable and principled, qualities Lyra valued more than she'd care to admit. I suppose we could use someone with knowledge of ancient relics, she said finally. Especially if we're going to follow the Starlight's trail. But I run a tight ship. Officer Saul. No special treatment. I wouldn't expect any, Captain Vance, Mira replied formally, though her eyes sparkled with excitement. As they prepared to depart, Selen returned to his cruiser, with a promise to report the Starlight as neutralized, rather than stolen or destroyed. It wasn't entirely a lie. The artifact, as they had known it, no longer existed. The Nomad's fortune lifted off with its expanded crew, its systems humming with new energy. As they broke orbit, Lyra gazed out at the transformed Lyran system. Where once there had been chaos and decay, now there was renewal and growth. But it was what lay beyond that truly caught her attention. In the distant reaches of space, where the wave of starlight energy had traveled, a strange phenomenon was occurring. The fabric of reality itself seemed to be thinning, creating what looked like a doorway among the stars. Hawk, Lyra called to the AI. What am I looking at? The hologram materialized beside her, his expression one of awe. If I'm interpreting these readings correctly, Captain, it appears to be a gateway to another universe entirely. Rook, who had joined them on the bridge, whistled low. So much for retirement. Mira leaned forward, studying the phenomenon. The Lyrans were said to have been explorers of realities, not just space. This could be confirmation of those legends. Lyra grinned, the thrill of discovery coursing through her veins. This was better than any treasure, any heist she had ever planned. This was the beginning of something entirely new. Well then, she said, settling into the captain's chair. Let's go see what's on the other side. The Nomad's fortune accelerated toward the starry gateway, carrying its crew of unlikely allies toward a new adventure. Behind them, the Lyran system pulsed with renewed life, a beacon of hope in the vastness of space. And somewhere, in the quantum fabric that connected all things, the consciousness that had once been the Starlight watched and waited, knowing that its chosen bearers would carry its legacy forward, not as thieves or conquerors, but as explorers and healers. The light that had been hidden for millennia now shone freely among the stars, a reminder that even in the darkest corners of the universe, hope could be found. All it needed was the right hands to guide it home.